welcome to another day. We all woke up this morning, we're breathing, we're alive, and we're here to hang out with you for the next 4.5 hours. Real quick, as a public service, Tiki and I and Sean and Loogie, we all sat in my office, and we listened to Aaron Rodgers for 45 minutes on Pat McAfee, and even I was confused. So I've got nothing to add. I guess him and Jimmy don't like each other, whatever. Nothing's changed. So I'm done. I'm done. I spent the entire year as an Aaron Rodgers ologist listening to everything this man had to say. And today, after 45 minutes of just a lot of words mixed into a salad, I put my hands up, I looked at Tiki, and said, I'm done.
Cosign.
Can we move on?
Cosign.
So now,
we have nothing to add.
I got nothing. Even I was confused. Now, Giant fans, last night, I know what you did. You sat there on a beautiful Monday night, and you watched a college football game that you only cared about because you were doing scouting work.
Maybe there were some Michigan fans in the audience.
Sure. Oh, yeah. There's a few Michigan fans. There's a few bettors out there. But you analyzed Michael Penix Jr., and you probably came away unimpressed. I'm here to tell you that one national championship game isn't the end-all, be-all for a kid in the draft. But here's what I am here to tell you on January 9th, the first real day of the NFL offseason. All of you Giant fans, and I will partake in this as well, we got a decision to make. And that decision is, what the hell are we doing at quarterback? And Tiki, I think there are three kind of boxes you could go to as a Giant fan.
Nothing is one of them?
I'll tell you why nothing is not one of them.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Joe Shane, as he awkwardly flipped with his phone while Brian Daboll was talking about Wink Martindale yesterday, still being the defensive coordinator, Joe Shane's been honest that they're adding a quarterback. They're going to add a quarterback. He didn't say how. He didn't say where. He didn't say whom. But he said numerous times they will add a quarterback. So I disagree with the none. Yeah. That's not an option.
Well, it can't be when you think about it, because they signed Tyrod Taylor to a big, not a big deal, but it was a pretty big backup deal before Daniel Jones was paid. Now that Daniel Jones is paid, you can't sign Tyrod Taylor to a bigger deal, which is probably going to be on task because he is one of the better backups in the NFL.
Well, but here's the interesting thing. So they could re-sign Tyrod Taylor. They could. They could allot more money to the quarterback room because Daniel Jones may not be ready for the start of the season. And that has been made clear by Joe Shane. So to me, there are three ways this team can go. And what I find fascinating, I'm going to write it down, is I think our views on January 9th may turn out to be very different than our views on March 9th. I think as the combine occurs and free agency starts and coaches are hired, we're all going to evolve in what we think. But on the first day of the real NFL offseason, I'll let you know where I think, and we'll all figure out where everybody thinks. But option number one is to add a veteran free agent. And that could be Tyrod Taylor. That could be Ryan Tannehill. That could be Marcus Mariota. That could be Sam Darnold. That could be Jameis Winston. That could be Drew Lock. That could even be Baker Mayfield, who's a free agent.
Yeah, Gardner Minshew.
Could be Gardner Minshew. It won't be Kirk Cousins, but it could be. It could be Joe Flacco. It could be Joshua Dobbs. All those guys I mentioned are free agents. And it is possible, even if that's not what you want, Sean, or what you want, Tiki, it is possible that when Joe Shane says we're adding a quarterback, he goes into the basket of veteran quarterbacks. That's on the table.
Yes, it is. I just don't – I guess I like some of those names, but I think a lot of those guys played this year, and a lot of those guys think they want to be in positions where they can start. They can win the starting job. Now, would they be given the starting job if Daniel Jones is not healthy? Sure. But are they actually winning it from Daniel Jones? I don't think so.
Well, they could win it in this situation. Daniel's not ready until 5 weeks into the season, and they start the year 4-0. If you sign, hypothetically, let's say Joshua Dobbs, and they start 4-0, trust me, on this radio station, nobody's going to say go back to Daniel Jones. So it is an opportunity for a veteran if that's the route Joe Shane goes.
I don't agree with that. I think I would be pining to see Daniel Jones.
Are you serious?
Unless Joshua Dobbs was Pro Bowl caliber and for 4 weeks. And I don't know if that's going to be the case. But what I say that for a reason, because I look at a guy like Baker who has bounced around. I mean, he's been on 3 teams in the last year and a month or so, right? Because he was 2 teams last year and then at the end of the year because he went to L.A. and he started in Carolina, and then he spent the whole season with Tampa. He doesn't want to be bouncing around for the last quarter of his career. And so I think a lot of those options aren't going to feel ideal to the free agents. Like the Giants aren't going to feel like the ideal landing spot to those free agents because there's not really a guarantee for them. And these guys are looking for guarantees. Like Ryan Tannehill thinks he can still play.
Is he getting a guarantee, though? You say that's what they're looking
know.
for. Where the hell is he getting that from?
I don't know, but I think we found circumstances this year in the NFL where quarterbacking was so all over the place that it feels wide open. And, like, could you go to Oakland despite Aiden O'Connell being there and beat out Aiden O'Connell for the starting job? The answer is probably yes.
Yeah, but if you come to the New York Giants, if this is the route Joe Shane takes, why I disagree that a veteran would find it intriguing is that you've got an open chance to be the week 1 starter if Jones isn't healthy enough.
Yeah, but are you going to get a week 3 or 4 chance to continue to be the starter if Daniel Jones gets healthy?
Tiki, while I disagree with Evan's premise that this is option number 1.
No, I'm not ranking the options.
Okay.
I'm giving you the 3 different options.
Yes. What I will say is there is a certain model where a veteran could look at this and Daniel Jones as the perfect route to be, hey, I saw what Geno Smith did. Even if I have to sit back for a year, I'm not convinced that either Daniel Jones is going to continue to remain healthy when he comes back or B, that the Giants wouldn't get rid of him if I showed enough anyway. There is that who could be the next Geno Smith route.
Well, and also, if you're a veteran quarterback, either you're signed to back somebody up, and if you're backing up, let's say, Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson, you're rooting for an injury to get your opportunity.
But you're not really rooting for an injury.
But you're not really rooting for an injury, but that's the only way you're getting an opportunity. The other time you get a job is when a team drafts a young quarterback and you bring the veteran in to be a caretaker, which usually lasts 3-4 weeks, essentially. Ask Tyrod Taylor. In this case, if this is the route Joe Shane goes, and let me make this clear, this ain't the route I'm going. I'll tell you the route I'm going in a few seconds. Mm-hmm. If you go this route, you have a better opportunity to play.
Yeah, you do as a backup quarterback, but it's still – I just think the particular guys that I would want, right, and I'm talking about like a Baker who had a good season or Tannehill or even Joe Flacco. Like Joe Flacco's not – just accepting being the backup to Deshaun Watson in Cleveland next year. He's a free agent, obviously, because he only was on a short-term deal. In fact, he was on the practice squad for 5 of those weeks. He was in elevation until they couldn't elevate him anymore, and they signed him to the active roster, and he's driving them into the postseason. So, but he's not going to think, if he even plays next year, yeah, I'm just a backup. He's going to think he can still play.
No doubt.
And so I think there are a lot of those guys, and those are the guys that I would want.
Right.
If Daniel Jones isn't available, I just don't think they're going to look at the Giants as the ideal landing spot for them because in theory, they can start, but in actuality, it's still Daniel Jones' job.
The other veteran free agent who's not a free agent yet, but will be a free agent that I should bring up because he's in that pile of Group A if you go the veteran route, is a fellow by the name of Russell Wilson because he will be available. But I don't think anyone wants to partake in that. Option number 2 is you're picking 6th in the first round. You also have numerous second-round picks picking 47th and 70th. You could simply stay where you are and draft a quarterback, whether it's 6th overall, which may be the 3rd or 4th quarterback taken, or you wait and you make a quarterback pick in the second round. That is the likeliest option. And then the third option, and this is what I endorse, this is what I would do, is I go for the gusto.
Which is?
I trade for the number 1 overall pick.
Oh, man.
If you believe... And you do. I happen to not. I think the Chicago Bears are going to use the number 1 overall pick to draft Caleb Williams or Drake May. But if you believe they're not, and they have their answer in Justin Fields, then the Chicago Bears and Ryan Poles are going to have an auction for that pick. And the New York Giants, if you look at the picks they have and the value of their picks, have the 5th best collection of draft picks in the National Football League. And that's thanks to Joe Shane, who made a wonderful trade in trading Leonard Williams for a second-round pick. And it also has a little bit to do with the Giants sucking. Okay? They are equipped, and it's expensive. The Bears know because they just got this. This is how they have the first overall pick. The New York Giants could be equipped to make that jump. And whether you like Caleb Williams or not, or it's Drake May, the reason I would want to do that is if I'm sitting at 6 or if I'm making a pick in the second round, I'm not getting the top quarterback available. I'm not getting the second best quarterback available. And there's a high likelihood, Tiki, you're not getting the third best quarterback available.
No, you're drafting the quarterback who is the project, the guy who will be competing with Tommy DeVito for the backup job, maybe the starting job until Daniel Jones is ready. You're right about that. Right, the Giants have picks that they can trade up to get all the way up. 6th pick, the 35th, 58th, and then 70th or 69th. So they have the picks to possibly go there, and obviously it would take a future first rounder as well, I'm sure. But The question is, do you want to? And if I'm the Giants, I still feel like there are so many holes to fill with all of the free agents that they have. It's a third of the team is free agents. You still need depth and really starting offensive linemen. I think going all in for the quarterback right now, when you got one on the roster who's signed to a 4-year deal or 3 years left on his deal, even though he's injured right now, just doesn't make sense.
You know why it makes sense, Tiki? I'll
Why?
tell you why. It's because I have more confidence in the Giants than you do. And here's why. Do you think the New York Giants are picking in the top 10 next year?
I hope the hell not.
You hope not. And by the way, if they are, guess who's gone?
Yes.
Guess who's gone?
Right.
They're all gone.
Yeah, they're not going to have time to fill those other holes you're talking about.
So I look at it this way, even though I've turned out to be very wrong about this.
This is why I said that Joe Shane is lobbying. Like, kick
the can down the road?
Let me kick this another year. Because you're right. You're absolutely right. If they don't achieve next year, in theory, they could be gone. But I think there is an argument that this needs another year because of the Daniel Jones injury.
But when Saquon Barkley was selected, and I'm telling you, this is the most talked about draft pick in the history of sports talk radio, the giant decision to draft Saquon Barkley. But when they made that pick, a part of my rationale for why it was a mistake and why they needed to draft a quarterback was, how often do you pick this high? How often are you in this position to select this high? And the answer and the hope is, well, not often. If we're a functional organization, we're not picking in the top 5 routinely. So if the New York Giants next year have an improved defense with Wink Martindale gone, and they have a functioning offense.
Well,
with
not officially gone yet.
Well, we'll get to that later.
I know.
If the Giants are competent, you're not picking 6th. You're picking 15th. You're picking 18th. Dare I say, you're picking even later in the first round. So this is a rare occurrence for Joe Shane and Brian Daboll picking 6. So the question I love to ask, Clint Capella was the one who framed it, is what are you going to do about it? Picking 6 with an extra second-round pick in a draft that looks like it's very top 2 heavy. Though Jaden Daniels looks great, so you want to tell me it's top 3 heavy? Fine. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit by the sidelines and have the top quarterbacks go away and have to draft, as you framed it, a project? And then if you're competent, you're never picking top 6 again, or are you going to have the balls to go for it? And the New York Giants are set up with the ammunition to go for it. And that's why, here's my endorsement at 2:13 on January 9th. Go for it.
You cannot go for it.
Why?
You can't. Because you just don't know on these quarterbacks. You don't.
You never know, though.
I know you don't ever know, but there's just – so you're going to draft a quarterback. Now you're laden with two quarterbacks who are making pretty good money because the first-round pick's going to have a pretty good salary as well, even though it doesn't really matter because it's spread out. But Daniel Jones is still here, and you obviously want to justify that deal. So you're going to give him every opportunity to win the starting job. Every one. Right? Like, if Daniel Jones is healthy, he looks good, he's playing the part well, you absolutely are going to give him the chance to win that job. So in theory, you could draft a guy, number one, because you moved all the way up there, and then it's a waste, right?
How's it a waste?
Because Daniel Jones is playing.
He doesn't have to.
Why not? If Daniel Jones is healthy and ready to go, why would you not want that to be the
I'll tell you why.
To be the answer for you?
I'll tell you why, and I like Daniel Jones, and I've made clear what I think he is. I think he's a middle-of-the-pack quarterback in this league because you happen to be in a scenario where you could draft the best quarterback available, a guy who has a chance to be a franchise quarterback.
Okay,
so you change your plan.
Okay, the best quarterback available this year.
Yeah,
doesn't mean that he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that's probably my hang-up. I like Drake May. Caleb Williams, I have question marks on. Daniels, I mean, they didn't have a ton of success at LSU. I know he won the Heisman Trophy and he was amazing, but there's question marks there for me. All the other guys are second rounders and maybe even third rounders. With Penix last night I thought he got hurt again. I was like, oh, dude, this guy stepped on his ankle and broke his ankle or whatever it was. He actually came back and played, but he was fine. But it just made me remember all of the injury concerns that you have about him. Bo Nix, I have no idea. And so I don't love the option. So, yes, what your statement is correct. The best quarterback in this draft. But is that the best quarterback for the New York Giants going forward? That's what I don't have a grasp on. And in addition to what you see on the field, you just got to love the kid. And We don't know yet. Maybe Joe Shane knows, but I don't know if
So
I
what do
love
you want to
any of
do?
those.
You want to draft a project in the second round? Is that what you're endorsing on January 9th?
To compete, I'd rather draft the project in the second round and give Tommy DeVito, this project, and Daniel Jones, hopefully health-wise, a competition in the preseason and hope that Daniel Jones figures it out.
Oh, that plan makes me want to vomit as a Giant fan. It makes me want to vomit. Tiki, I respect your pick, but let's just be real about something. When it comes a year from now, if the Giants follow your plan, me, are we not going to have a ton of questions about whoever next year's quarterbacks are, too? Like, we can't just assume that the perfect guy is going to be out there. Because, by the way, if the perfect guy is out there, they're eventually going to go number one overall. And then no matter what, at some point, the Giants are trading up. Because if the Giants are ever picking number one overall on their own, Joe Shane and Brian Dable are not going to be the ones making that pick.
It's a new staff.
It's a new
coach.
staff. Joe Shane has traveled the country this year, specifically at all of these quarterbacks. So, of course, is he going to trade up if he doesn't like any of these guys? You say, no, he wouldn't do that. My hope is that he does love one of them. He does follow Evan's plan because ultimately, hey, if Daniel Jones is healthy, sure. That sounds great. I'm as big a Daniel Jones defender as anybody. The truth is, and we sat through it, 2 neck injuries in 3 years. How do you trust, even if you fix the O-line, that in week 2 next year, he doesn't take a funny hit to the neck, and we're sitting there going, oh my God, it's DeVito and Jacoby Brissett time, and then again, you're kicking the can down the road. Unfortunately for Daniel Jones, it's not even about play at this point. He might be 1 hit away on the neck from being gone, and next year, you have a defined out that they put in that contract, so you might as well get the guy in flux here. And you could go through the last 20 years of Giants picks. By the way, this spring will be 20 years since the Eli Manning decision. 20 years.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. 20 years.
The best first rounder in the last 20 years that the Giants came upon is Eli Manning. So all the talk about corner and wide receiver and and offensive line, the Giants have failed miserably at some of those positions.
Yeah, but that was a completely different regime. I think the scouting was very different. Don't forget, Joe Shane also remade the scouting department.
This regime also took Evan Neal.
Yeah, I hear you. But here's the other thing. We're talking about the draft pick now. I think that the NFL is at a point where you don't necessarily have to be a first-round star-in-the-making quarterback in order to win. It feels like it's increasingly moving away from that. Yeah, there are teams like Baltimore, like Kansas City, and I guess Miami falls into this category as well.
Every team but San Francisco has a guy like that who's going to be considered a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, but there's also guys that aren't. Like the Cleveland Browns, you can't tell me they're not a Super Bowl contender, right? I know it doesn't feel like it, but with the skill position players that they have on offense, the defense, which is one of the best in football, and Joe Flacco, who's got experience. Now he's a free agent, picked up off the street in week whatever it was, 12. He's still, he can take them to the Super Bowl and maybe even win it.
5 of the 7 teams in the AFC are quarterbacked by premium first-round draft picks.
Oh, great.
I'm just saying.
I agree. But
just saying. It's harder to be the Browns.
But their teams are also well-constructed. The Giants team is not well-constructed right now. I can't say this enough. There are 30 free agents.
Yeah, I get that.
30.
Yeah.
That's more than half the roster. And now you're going to waste a pick on a quarterback in the first round?
Waste? I mean, that's a word to use, waste?
If you hit and you scout right, you just accelerated the whole process. Sadly, and this is an indictment on the league, this isn't an indictment on Joe Shane, you don't have 4 or 5 years to build a roster like the Browns or the 49ers. And again, I know that you could tell me this is the outlier. A year ago, the Texans were at the depths of hell. They're in the postseason because they scouted properly, got the guy they wanted in C.J. Stroud. Even if they want a Bryce Young, who knows? But they hit on it. Everybody keeps worrying about what if you miss. They hit on it, and they're a division champion
Great.
next year.
I love that. I love it, Sean. Fantastic. The Houston Texans picked the right coach. They drafted the right quarterback. The exact same situation, Carolina Panthers. They picked the wrong coach, and they had a higher pick and drafted the wrong quarterback.
But we already got the right coach. We already checked one box.
I agreed, but you're putting all this on the quarterback. I think we're overemphasizing the quarterback right now because what we've seen this year is it doesn't necessarily take a star first-round quarterback in order to be a Super Bowl viable candidate, a team. You don't have to be, right? There are other ways around it nowadays. And with all of the free agent movement at quarterback, there are so many other ways to skin the cat. It's just different now than it ever has been.
Here's what we know. We know that Joe Shane wants to add a quarterback, and he will. And to me, there are 3 ways you can do it. Free agency with a veteran, drafting where you're drafting or having balls and trading up for that number 1 overall pick. We'll talk about what the cost of that pick would be, plus your reaction as Giant fans and what you want to do. I find this fascinating. I'm writing it down. Today's January 9th. It's the first real day of the NFL offseason. We've got coaching changes galore, the Mike Vrabel story, and I'm curious if Sean's belief as a Giant fan, my belief as an IFO, an independent football observer, and your belief as a Giant legend is going to evolve over the next 3 months as we get closer.
I'm sure it will.
I'm sure it will, too. That's why I'm writing it down, so I have record. We'll get to your calls coming up. We'll get to the Jets a little bit later on, and a lot of other football stuff going on, including the coaching carousel getting crazy right now in the National Football League. Plus, I do want to tell everybody, we are very excited about this. This Thursday, our show will be exclusively on AM for the first few hours of the show. So beginning at 2 o'clock, if you want to listen to us, it's on 660. Now, you may say that's weird. You may say, why the hell is that happening? Well, it's happening because the Brooklyn Nets are playing a game in Paris against the Cavs. They will be on FM. We will be on AM. And we are honoring this rare occurrence by having a day I'm looking forward to. I know you're looking forward to. A very special Throwback Thursday. A Throwback Thursday, 660, old jingles, legendary hosts, and a lot of surprises. So Thursday on the Fan, 2 o'clock, 660. It's like the old days. It's like you're in the car with your parents and you're listening to Imus in the Morning or Boomer and Carton or Mike and the Mad Dog or Sid Rosenberg or whoever the hell.
Took you long enough to pull that, Loogie.
I had a 10-second one that I'm going to play on Thursday, so I had to shorten it a little bit.
Thursday, all the bells, all the whistles, 660. Now, we'll still be on the Odyssey app. So if that's how you consume this radio station, no big deal. But if you consume us the traditional way on radio, 660 a.m. Thursday, 2 o'clock.